Hello and welcome to Plymouth Church. I'm Dr. Deborah Lindsay, the Interim Senior Minister at Plymouth, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you are gay or straight, or a little bit of each, male or female, or a little bit of each, black or white, young or old, or a little bit of each. Whether you are going to vote blue or vote red, or a little bit of each. Whether you are feeling full of faith and hopeful, or pretty discouraged, or a little bit of each. You are welcome here. We are glad you're here. Today is Communion Sunday, and so you may want to put the service on pause and gather up the food items, the elements you will need for communion. I have juice and bread, and we'll have communion later on in the worship service. Also, on a Sunday morning or whenever you are joining us in worship, we light a candle together to remind ourselves that God is always present and to remind ourselves that even as we worship in different places at different times, we are still very much together and one as a community. Can you believe this is our first worship service in September? Who would have guessed back in March that we would be worshiping in this manner and that we would have had adapted as a church community in so many ways to this new reality. Temporary, never forget that. So, will you join me now in a spirit of worship? You will see your response on the screen. We gather here in anticipation, seeking an encounter with our holy God. An encounter with the one who comes among us when we least expect it, who invites us to wrestle with our questions and doubts. The Holy One who richly blesses us, gives us all a fresh start, and calls us by name. Let us worship God together.
As we sing this Jamaican hymn as our opening hymn this morning, Let Us Talents and Tongues Employ, I invite you to get up and move around a little bit. Maybe we do some body percussion, tap on something. Maybe you have something you can shake or just wave something in the air as you join us in singing this fun little song.
Children's message, and I am coming to you today from Plymouth Church in our children's garden. So I don't know if you can see this. We've got some beautiful flowers, and this is a whole bunch of mint. But if you looked up close, you would also see a lot of honeybees working hard to make some honey for the winter. Some of my friends have been helping me this summer with this garden, and if you haven't been out here, we want to show you around a little bit and see what we've been up to. All right, in our first bed, we planted some red leaf lettuce, which didn't make too many leaves, but it's trying. This is a green bean plant, and it looks like the deer or somebody came and ate the tops of the plant, but look at all those green beans on there. And then we have some cauliflower, which hasn't turned into cauliflower yet, but it actually likes colder weather, so I'm not giving up on these guys yet. They might still make something. And if you look back here, look what's tucked under here. Whoops. We've got a huge zucchini. And you know what's exciting is this plant was a volunteer, meaning we didn't put the seeds there. The seeds grew from last year's garden. And then over here we also have some broccoli. And again, they like the cold weather too, so maybe we'll still get some broccoli. And we did have some radishes here, but those already grew. We already picked those. So let's see what's in the next bed. Okay, friends, look at this. Anybody recognize this? If we look closely, oh, look in there. I see tomatoes. Lots and lots of tomatoes. These are also volunteers from last summer. That means we had tomato plants here last year, and when they fell to the ground, their seeds went into the ground and they waited until spring. And look at all these tomatoes they're growing. I see another really big one down here. Oh, turning red. Yep. All right, and then in this bed, we also managed to get some carrots. So these are actually not ready yet. We'll see the little carrots start to pop up out of the ground when they get ready. So lots of carrots and tomatoes in this bed. Let's go see what's in the third one. All right, let's see what's growing in this one. We have some big basil plants. These are some more zucchini, and we already picked some zucchini this weekend, but look at, there's some flowers. So we will probably get some more zucchini in there. And then across the way, we have some pepper and cucumber. Lots of cucumbers coming on. And here's our eggplant. We got one here. We got some big eggplant plants and a funny looking guy coming on over here. So lots of cucumbers down there too. All right, so that is our third bed. Okay, so what are we gonna do with all this food that we've been growing this summer? Well, now at Plymouth Church, we have a little free pantry. And in the little free pantry, we can put anything that belongs on the shelf, okay? So like soup and canned vegetables and pasta. And sometimes people even bring things like soap. And look, there's paints. There's extra things in there. So these are things that won't go bad sitting outside, okay? We can't really put our fruits and vegetables in here. So we're going to put a sign on here that encourages people to help themselves to our children's garden and to go pick their own produce. So whatever's ready at the time, they can go and pick and add to their meal and have some fresh food. Part of what we learned this summer in caring for this garden is that God wants us to care about the earth, and He wants us to care for ourselves and others. And being good stewards, being responsible with our garden, and then taking care of ourselves and helping others is really what our summer program has been all about. So there's a recap of what we've been doing this summer, and the exciting news that we have a little free pantry here that we get to share food with others who may need it, and we can share what we grow from the children's garden. So thanks for coming out today. We'll see you next time.
Our reading today is from the book of Leviticus. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather in their yield. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest, or gather the grapes of your unpruned vine. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives 49 years. Then you shall have the trumpet sounded loud on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement. You shall have the trumpet sounded throughout all your land. And you shall hallow the 50th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. You shall return every one of you to your property, and every one of you to your family. May the Holy Spirit breathe understanding into our hearing of this word. Amen. Today we begin a sermon series called For Such a Time as This. I'm guessing that needs no explanation here in 2020. The passage I just read is not in the lectionary. There's a chance you have never ever heard it read in church, but it tells us something very important about God and God's priorities. Let's talk about what this new beginning looks like. The Sabbath for the land is every 7 years. Even today, farmers know it's good to give the soil a rest after a period of back-to-back growing seasons. Here, God commands the care and protection of all of creation. Also, every 7 years, debts are forgiven and indentured servants are set free. It is a year of rest for the land and a year of freedom for Hebrew slaves. The Jubilee in the text happens every 50 years, although the scholars have some disagreement about exactly how those years are counted. We don't have to resolve that today to appreciate the significance. In the Jubilee year, all land is returned to its original owner. Understand that in ancient times, in an agrarian culture, land was lost in order to pay off debts. And people didn't go into debt to have more stuff or a nicer house. There was no ancient version of using a credit card for a bigger TV and getting into trouble doing that. Families went into debt when they could not feed their children. Here's how it played out. When a famine came, Pharaoh sold food to subsistence farmers. Pharaoh always had food. In the second year of the famine, it never occurred to Pharaoh to give people food, so he took their cattle, their livelihood, in exchange for food. In the third year, as theologian Walter Brueggemann says, he took their bodies and their land and made them slaves. That was the system. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Families were just one flat tire, one traffic ticket, one trip to the ER away from being destitute and powerless. Brueggemann calls this a system of extraction, in which the powers that be extract from the vulnerable poor. Our text today demonstrates God's power at work in emancipation from the extraction system. God's intervention makes it possible to have a life outside the predatory system of Pharaoh. Can you imagine? Can you imagine into this scenario? Here comes God with a fresh start like no other. Let's imagine. Imagine the anticipation when the 7th year came around, and it meant liberation for you or your son or your daughter. People would have known when that time was coming up. They must have counted down the months and then the weeks and then the days. We can imagine eavesdropping on conversations. Can you hear them? What are you going to do when you get out of here? When you finally get to go home, who will you hug first? There was probably fear about hoping too much. What if it doesn't happen? What if we're disappointed? I imagine someone saying, I'm sick of doing the grunt work, hauling the water, looking after the sheep and the goats and the children, and staying clear of the master and his son. What if this whole Sabbath Jubilee deal is too good to be true? Maybe those stories we heard growing up were just stories. Oh, but the stories, the freedom stories. In the telling and the retelling, no doubt embellished a bit over the years. Imagine a wizened, stooped-over grandmother telling how her father had to sell her into servitude to pay the family's debts. It wasn't like he could go to a payday lender on the corner or take a second or a third job. Her life for the family debt. Like other sons and daughters, she was just led away. She was supposed to accept that this is just the way things are, but she never could. It was terrifying. It was abusive. Can you see her family gathered around as she reminisces? She never forgot the day that started out like any other, sweeping straw, shooing the livestock out. And then Grandma remembered, and her voice always shook when she told this part of the story. The head of the household came to tell her that she was going home. She would no longer be treated like a thing, like an object, but like a person, a daughter, a sister. She had her freedom. The debt was canceled, her life restored. There's a poignant quote from Harriet Tubman, who knew a different kind of slavery in a different time and place. She said, "When I found I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person." The Sabbath every 7 years wiped the slate clean. And every 50 years, the Jubilee really wiped the slate clean by returning the land to its original owners. The whole purpose of the Bible's laws about debt was to prevent people from becoming permanently impoverished, to ensure that families have a chance for a new beginning, for a fresh start. Now, I imagine among the wealthy, there was grumbling about the tradition. After all, forced labor was a primary source of wealth for the empire. Can you hear the argument? They can't even manage to feed their own children. Why shouldn't they be working for us? We know how to manage the land. We have the education, the background. We're better at this sort of thing. They get a free ride? It just isn't fair. I can envision them, the landowners, the wealthy merchants. I can see them nudging each other and saying, "Those rabbis, they've got their heads in the clouds." You can't run a country like that. Well, God says you can. In an ideal situation, of course, there would be no poverty. There would be no hungry children. But we don't live in an ideal world, not then and not now. The law of Israel, God's law, said it was essential to provide for the poor. This is a God who sees, who hears, who emancipates, and who delivers. Rest for the land, freedom for the slaves, forgiveness of debts. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Now, scholars don't really know for sure whether the ancient Hebrews ever actually practiced the Sabbath and Jubilee as they are prescribed in Leviticus. But we do know when we talk about God, we're talking about a God who liberates and gives every single person, everyone, a fresh start. God sets us free from whatever it is in the past or the current moment that prevents us from living a life of abundance and wholeness and completeness. Every one of us is so much more than our worst mistake. Each one of us is so much more than whatever it is that entraps or enslaves us, whatever it is that is holding us down, keeping us back. God knows. God will always wipe the slate clean. Can you imagine? Amen.
Panis angelus, et Will you please pray with me? God of all tenderness and hope, God, we come before you today asking that you might draw in our spirits and our hearts, that you might allow us a moment to not focus on all of the many different things that we have going on in our lives, God, but that you might let us focus on your presence and your sacredness. God, we offer our prayers to you this morning for this world, for people all over this world who have been affected by COVID in any number of ways, for people who are hurting and sick, for people who are without jobs and money, for those without resources or an ability to navigate this new world. God, we lift up our prayers for them. God, we lift up our prayers for the people of our country, for our inability to have conversations with one another, for our inability to see humanity in each other. God, we ask for the strength to resort to love and hope and your wisdom as we seek to have conversations with each other, as we seek and try to find new ways to sow hope into the fabric of our country. God, we continue to offer our prayers for this school year, for parents, for teachers, for administration, and most of all for our students. Keep them safe. Let them find hope and fun and new avenues to learn and to congregate in this upcoming school year, Lord. And God, we ask for prayers for Plymouth Church and for our community. We know that the needs and concerns of this church and our people, they continue to mount, and that new ones pop up every day. God, may we pray for one another. May we know that we are within this for each other. And may we know and understand and feel each other's love and support. And this morning we lift up to you prayers not said out loud, but those prayers that are burning on our hearts this morning. And we pray as you taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth that it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory are yours, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, once again, I invite you into this opportunity, this perhaps strange and weird opportunity to once again celebrate communion from different places, from different cities, from different parts of our houses, and once again, not in the same church building that we know and love. But even though this is strange and weird, it also recognizes the all-encompassing nature that our God is. It recognizes that our God is not beholden to the ways in which we form and put God into boxes throughout our lives. This act of virtual communion recognizes that in so many ways that we put restrictions on who God is and what God is able to do in our world. Because celebrating this communion, while not in the same place, but while in different places, recognizes that there is no corner of the earth, there is no part of our communities, there is no part of our house that our God does not surround and bless as sacred and loved, and wants to show and celebrate God's love with us. And that is what we do with this invitation and in this communion, is that we celebrate the love of God and the all-encompassing, all-forgiving, all-welcoming nature that our Christ gives to us. So that is what we get to do today. And over this meal, we say this prayer: that loving and holy God, we ask for your blessing over this meal of bread and cup, that through your power and spirit, that they may be the blood and body of you, given to us for the forgiveness of our sins. Amen. When Christ gathered with his disciples, he took bread. Maybe not Triscuits, but he took bread. And after blessing it, he broke it. And he gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body which has been broken for you. Whenever you eat of this, do so in remembrance of me." And in the same way, he took the cup, and after blessing it, after he poured it, he blessed it, and he gave it to his disciples once again, saying, "Take, drink, this is the cup of the new covenant, shed for the forgiveness of your sins. Whenever you drink of it, do so in remembrance of me." So ministering to us now in different places, I give you that same body and that same cup. So friends, the bread of heaven broken for you. And the cup of salvation shed for you. Let us pray. Holy God, we give thanks for your ability to touch every part of this world and every part of our lives. Thank you for this gift of bread and cup, and through it may we do your work in this world. Amen.
We have some announcements for you today about the life that continues and flourishes at Plymouth Church. First, thanks so much to all of you who attended our workshops on anti-racism. They were really successful, and we are now thinking about what our next step is, because we are not going to sit still during this interim time. Please, please, please keep your eye on Facebook, your email, the monthly newsletter, the Perspective, the Plymouth website. There is a lot going on at Plymouth, and we want you to be aware of it. And a really important thing to be aware of coming up is Sunday, the September 13th. We will have another outdoor worship experience on the lawn at Plymouth with social distancing and masks. And if the weather's bad, the service will not be held outside. It will always be online for you. So the next outdoor service is September 13th. We're going to continue to do outdoor services every couple of weeks, as long as the weather and the public health conditions will allow us. The Thursday night choir fellowship time is resuming on September 10th. Get it? Resuming? That Jim Riggs is so clever. The choir gathers on Zoom to share fellowship, to share music, and sometimes to be in meditation together. You can email Jim for details about that. I also want to call your attention to Plymouth Votes, which is a project of the church that is encouraging everyone. We're shooting for 100%, just to make a pledge that you will vote. Doesn't say anything about how you will vote or who you will vote for, just that you will vote. And one final item. Thank you so much to Sarah Gruby. She has returned to Yale. She really helped us through the summer with producing the online service and many, many other important jobs around the church. So we're very, very grateful to Sarah. And I do believe those are the announcements for today.
Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you want to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you want to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight.
I hope you'll spend some time this week thinking about the places in your life or in your heart, your spirit, that might need a fresh start. And know deep down within you that God is already working in you in that fresh start. God has already forgiven what needs to be forgiven. God is already creating what needs to be created. That is all happening with you, in you, around you, and we thank God for that. Go in peace.